And so either it's good people, great nation. Remember that line, right? Or it's buy Nigeria, consume Nigeria. All of those taglines are very important in rebuilding the image of Nigeria and Nigerians for national development and, of course, for positioning in the international community. And that's why we'll keep having this conversation. And one of those very critical times to have that is now. And joining us is a leading advertiser and, of course, founder of Noah's Ark, one of the leading advertising agencies in Nigeria. Mr. Lanre Adisa joins us on the program today, and he's right here in our Lagos studio. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
And welcome to the Morning Brief on Channel
Thank
TV.
you. Thanks for inviting me.
And so it's a very important conversation, especially with many happenings around us. Nigeria being designated as a country of, particular concern. Nigerians sometimes caught in some of the most unscrupulous circumstances abroad. When you get abroad, when you present your passport, you get more scrutiny than the others. For you, what is the biggest challenge in rebranding Nigeria and Nigerians amid all of these concerns?
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. Nigeria does not have a brand problem. We actually have a very strong brand, but what we have is a brand management problem. You spoke earlier about the slogans and all that. You can't advertise yourself out of a problem. So the problem is not to be found in another government policy or slogan. Right now, the strength of Nigeria comes from what I may want to call a bit of crowdsourcing from the people of Nigeria. As we speak about this problem with the US, we also should take that into context that the fact that right now, Nigeria's biggest brand activation is happening. And watch that. 30 December. So there's a big thing about Nigeria is this, Nigeria is that, but people are still coming. So that must tell you that there's something in that brand called Nigeria, but it is not being triggered by the government. It's by the people. From Afrobeats, by the people. Nigerian films, Nollywood, by the people. Our comedy, our fashion, all the things happening around us, by the people, which is fine. It's homegrown and also supported by the diaspora. There's a stronger identity clamor in the diaspora, which helps the Nigerian brand to flourish. So what should government do? Not try to control it, not get in the way, but pave the way. And I think that's where the real challenge is in managing the Nigerian brand. As regards the brand, yes, we can have challenges getting into some countries. But guess what? When you meet the people of that country, like, you're from Nigeria, they light up. Ooh. They talk about our footballers, our musicians. I mean, I just saw the Ashake concert in Brooklyn. Amazing. There are Nigerians in the diaspora who are now learning their language because of the music. What more do you want? So there's a whole lot going on for us as a country, but I think the tendency is to look at the negatives and we forget about the positives. But that's where Nigeria is got a strong brand, but we don't have brand management.
So, if you were to sell Nigeria, and I ask this question with a lot of optimism, because you have really packaged some of the leading brands in Nigeria and you have transformed them. I would not like to mention the names of those brands unless they pay Morning Brief, especially. If you were to sell Nigeria, if you were to rebrand Nigeria and compel, the US, for instance, to redesignate Nigeria out of the CPC, to sell Nigeria to the West and ensure that crude oil is selling more than 1.7 million barrels per day, what would be your strategy?
It's a very broad thing. I mean, this particular topic. It's not going to happen overnight. You need to have a long-term perspective, for fixing the problem. And there are countries that have gone through this. I mean, Colombia being one of them, even Rwanda. And what did they do? You don't question some things. You don't get antagonistic. You have to be calm, first and foremost. And you look at what is working for you. Okay, for instance, in the case of Rwanda, they embraced their reality. They started looking at things around themselves, keep the place clean, get policies right, fix institutions and all of that. And when they did all of that, they started advertising. So you can't advertise first. Let us look internally. policy must match our intention. The promise that you want to give the entire world, our policy must match it. When you start doing things that don't really align with your intention, your promise, it becomes a problem. So I think one thing this country, I mean, again, there are no hard and fast rules there. And I don't want this to be misconstrued like another, government bureaucracy. Like I said, the brand is very strong, but there's no brand custodian. There's no brand custodian, so to say. Now, a national, and I'm being very careful, but you need a national brand council of sorts, not managed by a politician.
But we have a Ministry of Culture.
I'm coming there. Because now we're talking about how do we manage our brand to face the world. It is not bound by a political appointment or whatever. It's not, no. It's something that will be backed by law. Independent, preferably somebody who is what savvy, is Nigerian, she's Nigerian, it doesn't matter who, but understands, how the world listens. It is not tied to perhaps the political tenure of a government. It might be a 5-year tenure, a 7-year tenure, or whatever it is, or longer. The way UNICEF will say they have a brand ambassador, but now different now. The intention is that it is not about just that one person. Like I said, it's a council. So you bring in the experts, but you need somebody who can speak. You need somebody who can walk into Washington or New York or London today, and people will listen. The biggest thing we have going for us is our soft power, and we don't seem to realize it. I mean, I'm always amazed. I go to countries outside of Nigeria, I go to malls, I go to places, and I think one American city, I think California or so, ushered in the new year last year or 2 years ago, playing Rema. I mean, how much more power do you really need as a country? So, how are we using this? It's soft power. Somebody told me once that Taki and Papa went to a particular African country. They were mobbed from the airport. I was in Kenya at some point, 70% of the music on radio, Nigerian music. So, how do we use it? So, but you need to coordinate. That's where the problem is. There are so many storytellers. There's no one single story, plan, so to say. And that's where that kind of council works. Like I said, it's not political. Yes, there's a ministry. Now, look at it this way. There are so many ministries doing different things. Somebody needs to help them align. How do we align policy with promise? And this person has to be non-political, in my opinion. And of course, the experts will come in, the AAN of this world, the NIPR of this world. They have to work together. Otherwise, what we're going to have now, one sectoral body is doing something, another, because everybody's looking at what's in it for them. If you really mean business, as we speak, imagine if you had, let me give an example. I think of late, even with the US scenario that you're talking about, when South Africa and Donald Trump had this, problem. The South African president was in the White House, and you had this very, uncomfortable scenario going on. But eventually, there was a South African delegation that came to America, and he had golfers and other people there in the room with him. The man warmed up to them because they were speaking his language. So that's what we're not getting right. How are we using our own people to do the right thing for us? They can knock on doors and get listened to, because the biggest power you have is your culture.
So let's talk about, because I know that there is the Nigerian Reputation Management Group.
I'm aware of it.
So when you were talking about a centralized, maybe clearinghouse, if you will, to be able to manage perception in that sense, maybe you speak to how this is going to help in terms of what you're talking about, or whether this is going to help at all. That's I think he said it by our chairman. I'm
aware of that, actually.
So in addition to that, I want you to speak, because you've talked about something using Rwanda as an example that I like, fixing within and before you start selling. One of the biggest problems we have is the inability to attain nationhood as a people. And that has gotten to a point where the trust quotient is extremely low. How do we manage that trust quotient issue? Because I feel that if we can manage that effectively, that could be a good start. What do you think?
Absolutely right. So first, I'm aware of that group, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's not necessarily what is going to fix it long term.
Why do you say that?
So I just said something earlier. they will have to work together with this particular body I'm talking about. You said it just now. Is there somebody we can rely on right now? We can go to any capital of any country in the world, and they can achieve some things that will take a long time for politicians or even technocrats to do. Look at it this way. The image of a country, the brand equity of a country, should be treated like the way you treat your currency, the way you have your central bank. You don't toy with it. You don't play politics with it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, when we had this cash scenario some 1 or 2 years ago, remember? It was a big national mess. This reputation management company, body, can work with something that is backed by law, like I just said now. It's not saying they don't have a role.
Sector driven.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you need something that is backed by law that says, look, the image of Nigeria is so important, is as important as our currency, like I just said. So whoever is going to be on this council will come from those people as well, from other sectors, but somebody must be. In fact, you may have a group of ambassadors, like your UNICEF ambassadors, but you need somebody who is the arrowhead of it. Now, who that person is, you can sit down and work out. Without it, again, Nigeria is a very complex country. People start reading meaning to, oh, is it from this person, da. A neutral person with a lot of, brand equity on his own or our own. Now, it works very well. We have to fix what is internal before we can go out there. Now, in all of this, where is the role of government? Excuse me. The president is the chief marketing officer of the country. This is our country. This is a brand. If you have any brand, yes, you can call him CEO, but he doubles as the CEO and the CMO of Nigeria. So whatever we do, a lot depends also on what we transmit as a country, as an administration. So when things happen in Nigeria, and people, even Nigerians like us, start wondering, why is this happening? I mean, how did we get here? Those are the issues that affect our brand equity. What we transmit out there. It's a very complex country, but again, you know what? There's nothing that is complex that cannot be simplified, unless you're not ready to do that. So we have to think first about what's in it for us. How did we get to Nigeria having the second largest film industry after Bollywood? It's the people. So even those people have to be empowered. You have to give them reasons to do more for Nigeria. The pride we feel. I mean, I don't know about you. When we missed out on this World Cup thing, I mean, you don't know how patriotic you are until some things happen to you.
I'm still in pains, by the way.
I woke up the following morning and I could not explain why. I just felt very sad. From inside. The same thing happened to me at some point. There was this Olympics, I don't know which country, and Nigeria did not win any medal. And it was the closing ceremony. People were waving flags. And I felt so humiliated. This is our country. It's a big, beautiful country, but I think we just need to coordinate ourselves. Let's forget about this about being complex. India is more complex than we are. I believe more people, more, sects and all sorts of things, but they still manage to get some things together. I think that's where it starts from. I think when we think about Nigeria and think long term, that whether I'm the governor today or the president today, you're going to leave at some point. What are you going to leave behind? Yeah. What are you going to build on? Because that's what the brand will survive us. But we have to think seriously about coordinating, those things.
This is a very important conversation, and I'm glad we're having it. By the way, keep hope alive for the World Cup. You never know.
Never know.
We're trying to find the back door.
We might just find wobbling our way out there.
But, so you've talked a lot about the brand Nigeria being very strong, and I think a lot of people would agree with you. It's strong for different reasons. In fact, Obama just released his playlist for this year. Burna Boy was there. Olamide was there.
Fela was there.
Was Fela in this one? I don't think I saw Fela in, so maybe last year's one. But you had a lot of Nigerian representation on the playlist, and I just was like, way to go. It speaks to the soft power you refer to. But how can Nigerians then believe in the brand Nigeria? You said something interesting, that you can't advertise your way out of a problem or something of sorts, but you need Nigerians to believe in the brand Nigeria. So it's a lot of people are disconnected from that brand Nigeria for different reasons. It has not delivered to them. In fact, there's this thing now, Nigeria happened to me, even though they're trying to flip it that you happened to Nigeria. It's been a lot of back and forth, but I think the Nigerian brand has taken a lot of hit. And the biggest or the largest group of people that don't believe in it sometimes even the Nigerians themselves.
Absolutely.
So how can we get Nigerians to believe in Nigeria?
You know, there's a guy called Scott Bedry, and he wrote a book some years back called A Brand New World. And what he says is this. You see, a brand is not about what it says. It's about what it does. It's about brand behavior. Now, those Nigerians love the Nigerian brand. That's Nigeria, as it were. They have a sense of identity. But they are losing hope in Nigeria as a nation in terms of what it does for them. So again, we go back to policy, we go back to government. What do we transmit? What are we... I mean, there's so many things happening around us. Case in point, this recent ambassadorial list and all that, and people are like, if you really think about our reputation, if you really worry about us as a people, I mean, some optics will matter to you. I'm not here to disparage anybody, but if anybody has had some not so good, perception in the public, you don't want to, at a time like this when people are saying Nigeria is this, you've talked about the American thing, you want to push your best, 11. So that is where Nigerians have a problem. When certain things happen and there's a misalignment between policy and expectation, Nigerians will complain. That's why they say, oh, Nigeria happens to them. But it doesn't mean that they don't believe in this country, right? They believe in the country, but I think what is important is that brand behavior on the part of government, policymakers, should match their expectation. Until we get that right, we will continue to have that problem. But those people, when they are out of this country, they will be the first to speak for Nigeria, to fight for Nigeria.
Oh, yeah.
I can tell you that. So they know that
again. You see a lot of Nigerians fighting. Usually when you have conversations outside the country, yes, they'll talk about the music, sometimes even football.
Even football, yeah.
But then
when it comes to you and Ghana and Jollof and all, somebody was saying, look, we can talk about fighting over Jollof, but you know what? You can't mess with my Nigerian brother or my Ghanaian brother. We are still brothers.
But then they go to the top 3 infamous issues. Cyber crimes.
Yeah.
Sadly, corruption and terrorism. Then you have to, after all of the pleasantries, you have to start battling that. So you've made quite important points, and I think that these things are really out there for everybody to catch on to. But again, how long do you think it will take? Because you do brand strategy a lot, and we've talked about how you're able to transform brands. Please, can you give us a time frame? How long do you think this will take? Because there are a lot of young people who have been waiting.
Yeah.
They've been waiting for the longest time possible, and they just need some ray of hope to just believe in Nigeria again. So how long do they have to wait for?
I can't tell you what time in specific, but I'll tell you one thing. We need to start getting things right. And what I mean by that is this. Let's come to the brand world. A particular brand, again, I'm not advertising, any particular brand, had a problem some years back, some crisis. And if I mention the category, you know the brand I'm talking about, but I won't mention the name. It's a noodles brand. So now, what happened to that brand at that point in time was enough to ruin it for a long time. But the reason it could survive it was because they had invested in brand building over time. So that's where we need to start from. We need to start deliberately looking at this as a big asset, this brand called Nigeria. And that will require some actions that will start sending signals to those people to start having hope. We're not there yet, but these guys are getting some things right. You know what I'm saying? If we start doing those things, take for instance, in their own world, back to soft power. What roles are you assigning to some of those people who are leading? In fact, it was so bad that I think 1 or 2 of them were given national awards and they didn't even show up or something like that. We need to start making them believe that there's something here. And it's in behavior. I can't help but keep saying that. Behavior is something we can perceive. There's a way that a particular policymaker or government can do just one action or two. People start, okay, something is going on here. We need to watch it. That is not happening enough. That's where the problem is.
So this feels like a brand 101 class. You've talked about brand management, you've talked about brand custodian, you've talked about brand behavior. Yeah. Brand behavior stands out. Where there is brand behavior, we have what Kadi has enumerated: terrorism, corruption, fraud. Yeah. So you've also talked about what seems to be an outlet, as a solution. You've mentioned football.
Yep.
You've mentioned the Olympics. You've mentioned culture. You mentioned Nollywood. I mean, you referred to how Burna Boy's song was played, you know, at a major global event. So the question is, what is the worth? Perhaps if we're looking at the potential worth of a brand, you know, that can sell in the international community, such that government can begin to think about the brand worth of this brand called Nigeria. That's on the one hand. Now, on the other hand, does this brand worth, culture, football, Nollywood, does it trump the brand burden, terrorism, fraud, does it trump that?
Okay, good point. You know, the reason why I spoke about the need to be deliberate in building the strength of the brand is this. All these problems we've talked about, they're not peculiar to Nigeria. As a matter of fact, you know, there are scam farms around the world, Asia in particular, where they just keep people in places and, you know, get them to send scam letters and stuff to different kinds of people. It's organized, it's big, it's bigger than what we do in Nigeria. But nobody is going to blame them for it. They think about the Nigerian. Because if you don't do something about your own image, if you're not deliberate about the things that you do, then they will hang other people's problems on you. That's what we're dealing with, basically. There's corruption in Nigeria. There's more corruption in other parts of the world, even in the Western world. There's more corruption going on right now in some supposedly advanced country. There are things being done in those countries that we can't even try in Nigeria today. But those things don't sully their image. So it's because we are weak right now. We have a strong brand, but we are weak in managing that brand.
Pardon me, just to reiterate the point, you know, when COVID came, it was being called the Wuhan virus. And China fought and said, nope. No. Mind you, Ebola, which other virus is still named after African areas till today. But China said, no.
You have to be deliberate about it. You have to fight it. That's what we don't seem to have.
So is it about the who controls the narrative better than the other person? Because
you have to control your own narrative.
Because what you're talking about is that we have achieved one thing, brand awareness.
Yes.
So
I think it's clear as crystal.
But we're not managing the brand.
So it is the brand custodian that will manage the brand narrative.
That's what I'm talking about. So we have a brand. I mean, we have a brand that people would die for, truth be told. But what are we doing about it? Because it was like gifted to us by the youth, Niger culture. That is, I mean, look, your touch points, for instance, your brand touch points, will be the airport and all those things. You come to the airport, you have a big problem. But people still come, meaning that they still see something in you. There are stories out there about, oh, don't go to Nigeria, but they will still come to Nigeria. I have an experience. One South African producer came to shoot a commercial with us and all that. She was on a crew. And the next day she wrote a mail to her mom saying, Mom, is not what to think. Because the image out there is different from what they see when they come. Nigeria is a very friendly country. I mean, how many times have you heard about any foreigner being shot or being killed in Nigeria? It doesn't happen. Most expatriates that come to Nigeria, they don't leave. When their contract expires somewhere, they find something else to do or start a business. But we are not aware of that. We're not tapping into that. There's something we're getting right, but we're not doing it right in terms of being aware of it and managing it. And that's where government can really help us.
So is this also this brand custodian that can get Nigeria and Nigerians to exit this disconnect? You know, I see memes or what do they call it?
Memes.
Social media, you know, where babies, you know, they're told that they're about to enter Nigeria and they say, no, we're not. So all of those things, is it the brand custodian that would, you know, deal with that? And how?
Now, let's get it right. I'm not looking for a hero. It's not one person. I talked about a council, people who know, just that we need a face or faces as the case may be. Now, when things happen like that, what you do is you don't try and force it, but you do more positive stuff that will drown the negatives. The negatives are going to be there. Some Nigerians will take pride in doing some of those things. They are silly things, but we have to be deliberate in doing the things that will drown this nonsense so that over time people will start seeing the positives about us. Look, we're not even talking about that. The Nigerian food. Wonderful. I mean, you go out.
From what you've explained, sorry for cutting it, it feels like the Nigerian government is our biggest problem.
I agree with you.
Because every other, no, it is because I've listened to what we've been talking about, our culture, this, that. As soon as it gets to government, everything just gets bad.
And I think it's something that, I don't want to look at it from
I'm not talking about Bola Tinubu.
No, I understand. It's over time.
Yes.
We need to get it right. Getting it right is saying, what do we have working for us? if you can look at your strength, how do you build around that strength? And from that strength, something else will happen. Take, for instance, in the case of Vietnam, what Vietnam did was to say, look, we will look at manufacturing. And they were very deliberate over time. Now, made in Vietnam makes sense to the world. So it's about being deliberate. We are not. Ghana, next door. You know, Day of Return or something that they called it. Yeah. When the people came from the diaspora to mark 400 years of the first shipment of slaves to the Americas. And they were because there was a yearning for identity in America and other parts of the world. What they did was to just latch onto that and create the environment for it to happen. Or you can become a Ghanaian citizen. You can add that. And it worked for them. So it is about being deliberate. What are we doing with the assets that we have? It doesn't get better than this.
So if after this conversation, President Tinubu appoints you as the leader of this brand custodian for Nigeria, would you accept on a final note?
No, it's not about accepting or not. I mean, I would love to serve Nigeria, but I'm not even sure I am that candidate. I would like to work with that council if given the opportunity, but you need somebody who can actually go to places, knock on doors, and get stuff done. But working with a group of experts,
A fine place to anchor this conversation. A very productive one, by the way. We must thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Lanre Adesaiza, founder, Chief Executive Officer, Noah's Ark Communications.
And you also forgot I'm the president of AAN.
Yes, the Advertising Association of Nigeria, right? All right, thank you so much for coming through on this particular one.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
There you go. So while we continue with this branding of Nigeria, we must again reiterate